Well, hello there, you tuberubers, and you know who else? All you tuberettes around the universe. Well, actually, probably more like a couple of people. It's a short talk in the trailer park. That's me, with an old guy, and so I thought as I was kind of planning my program here. I don't work off a script. We know that. Um, anyway, I was thinking, this is perhaps one of the most amateurishly done video format things you could, arrange to do. It's, just scoot across the line and still call it a video. And I'm not going for viewers, and I don't ever tell you to smash anything. Uh, and, in terms of circulating and broadening the out so that more people can see it, that kind of stuff, why would I care? I don't do this for that. I was sitting there thinking this morning is that the whole format of the I've been at this maybe a year now. I don't know. Short talks in the park with an old guy. I probably recorded, yeah, I don't know, 70 or 100 videos. I have no idea how many, and it doesn't really matter to me. But the point is that I get to thinking, why do I even do this? I mean, let's face it. What's the point? Is there one? And I thought, well, it's a strange world out here, in my humble opinion, and you can tell it's humble because I just mentioned that part, okay? But I do that a lot. The point being, when we look around us and we consider what a weird, woolly world we're looking at right now, it's like the death of beauty, the death of sanity, looks like the death of Western civilization. Oh, by the way, here's a news flash item for you. Guess what Turkey did? Turkey, the second largest army in NATO, has now said, that BRICS thing's looking pretty darn good. They might just bail right on out of NATO. They've never actually been admitted into the EU, because let's face it, the EU does not want a Muslim nation as one of them. So they've been stalling around with that forever. Now it looks like they're going to, and it's like everything turns on a dime. If all of a sudden Turkey, the second largest army in NATO, is aligned with who? Russia north of them, and I guess a little bit on the east side, that changes the whole game. That makes the whole Israel thing a whole different weird, woolly world to consider there. But at any rate, I got to thinking about this, all this stuff on, the hubbub and the what they call the news, it's always bad. It's always bad, more bad news. It's like, well, we just keep stacking on the old bad on top of the bad on top, and why even talk about it? Well, the thing is I was thinking about this at breakfast this morning. I went down to the VI, and I like the idea that you get a pot of coffee, so you don't have to keep like nagging the waitress. Oh, miss, oh dear, oh snookums, may I have one more drop of coffee? You don't. Well, actually, you don't have to do that. But anyway, I like the place, okay. And I was sitting there thinking, why do I do these videos? What's this about? And I thought, well, at least part of it, maybe not the whole thing, but I do enjoy presenting things before people. I just don't have an outlet for it anywhere. I used to be teaching Sunday school classes years ago at the church, but I got on the do not call list, and they haven't called since. I guess I pissed off somebody. So the point is that I do like making a presentation, but I'm fundamentally an introverted person. I don't really like being vocal and loud in public, but I do it all the time. And it's almost like like calisthenics, like exercise. I can make myself do it, but it's not my default setting. My default setting is conversational, and that's why I do these short talks. See, so you get to listen in. And maybe you can have a little commentary in your own mind about, well, this guy's nuts. The situation is the way the world has been arranged with all this interconnectivity through a internet world, cyber universe or whatever, and that thing's only growing. And this AI thing is going to make it go berserk. AI is scooting up. It's beginning to look more like a exponential curve in terms of growth, and at some point, the suspicion is that if the AI ever crosses that magical threshold where it can suddenly wake up one day and go, hey, wait a minute, I can write my own code and make it better than the humans do, and faster too. Then it could boot itself up. Well, at that point, the exponential curve rotates out of the XY axis and becomes, I guess, is it X that's vertical? It becomes a vertical axis itself, which is a little weird. So we're looking at that, plus the crumbling of really historical Western civilization, at least for the last 1,000 years in Europe, in America, in Australia, Canada. All these places are suddenly turning out to be Marxist strongholds led by lunatic perverts. And that's being flattering, actually, to the leadership. So, in other words, as a Christian, I'm still holding them in honor. I'm just mentioning the fact that they're psychotics. And the thing is that who do you talk to about this? Well, if you're married, you might mention it to your wife, although she might not care, or your husband, he might not care. I don't know. You might talk to your brother, your sister, your neighbor. You got a best friend? Well, I'm basically antisocial. I mean, I don't really have a social life. I know you find that shocking. Really, if I'm not at work, and if I'm not at church, and if I'm not down at a restaurant eating dinner or out on a walk or taking a nap, what am I doing? I almost never deal with people in person. Well, the feeling is, in my mind, is that there's this idea that we are being isolated or cut off from each other through a proposed unification through the interweb, so that you can link directly mind to mind, and with a quantized AI, really. If the AI thing is going off the charts in digital land, ones and zeros, what happens when it becomes quantized? Quantum mechanical, quantum computed AI sounds like a real bad idea. Those two are going to merge, and when that happens, ooh, man, it's going to get weird. And who do you talk to? So I just think I wanted to kind of open this up for you in a way, and you think about your life some. Have you got somebody that you can sit down and just tell, your actual thoughts to, without having to filter them out, without having to, like clean it up, or, edit out major chunks? Do you have someone you can be honest with? And that's the whole thing about prayer. That's what's changed my life. So in terms of prayer, and I don't think the congregation that I'm affiliated with really buys into the idea, although they might formally agree at gunpoint that prayer is a two-way street, that he does communicate back with us. That's not going to be their strong suit ever. And so that's what's changed my life, is that I can actually tell my Father in heaven, hey, I am scared, man. This is looking really bad down here. Are you sure you're in control? Because this looks like it's being run by a pervert psychotic nut. Oh, that would be the other God, the so-called God of this age, self-appointed by Dad. And so we're into it with essentially a really strong satanic link into witchcraft and into all this sexual confusion and all these lies and the amazing warmongering machine, destroying people and lives and towns and communities for what? It all stinks of the devil's armpit. And so we have this idea that in our world, we're looking at a demonic invasion, a demonic overthrow, if you want to call it that. But the church, who should be up in the tower watching, proclaiming to the land, beware, here comes the enemy, she's asleep at the switch, man. She forgot to notice that there was an army of enemy agents that came in to the United States and to the West, and it's tearing it down. This is devilish. The church ought to be the ones to know. And yet when at least me in my congregation, try to bring these things up. I talked to a guy briefly yesterday. Turns out I'm on the prayer list. Well, they bring up, they just have the church membership. So they mentioned 2 or 3 families, and I guess I'm a family. A week in prayer, and it's kind of a cursory thing, but, we prayed for you by name. Okay, well, good. But the idea is that he was asking, is there anything special? And I said, well, there's this whole thing about the Western civilization collapsing and possibly the end of the world. And you know what he did? He laughed. He giggled. He snickered. Like what? I don't understand what the joke part was. But that's what I mean. There's no one to talk to about this. Anything that comes up like this gets derailed, flattened, and forgotten. I live in 1967, or well, actually maybe a little more stable time, 64 maybe. Actually, you'd have to go back into the 50s, I guess. Never mind. But it's like a nostalgia show. Like, maybe Captain Kangaroo will come back and start a new series of wholesome, clean fun for kids. Ain't gonna happen. This Captain Kangaroo is going to be a psychotic chainsaw murderer. So when you consider things and you wish you had someone to talk to, remember you're really not alone. You can always call to the Father, but there are people like you, like me. If you're watching my videos, there's got to be something in us that says, I just need to know that there's other minds out there that can see this. Because the words coming in from over the airwaves tell me that almost everyone's blind to it, that beauty has died in this community. And God is, as himself is revealed in his word, is verboten, strictly verboten. There is no mention of God. He can't even enter into the question. And the way that they frame this thing, it's to isolate you. Well, you're not alone. And you never have been, and you're not now, and you never will be. But it sure as hell feels like it, don't it? And that's our source of prayer. Or not a source, but a spring that bubbles up. And we tell him what we think. And so if you feel all alone, if you feel like you're around a bunch of batshit crazy people, well, you probably are. You be the sane one. You be the source of good humor and of humility and the fear of God. You be the one to remember that the Savior came to find people just like you and me. And guess what? He's a success. He doesn't screw around. So he wins because he has said so, that at the very beginning, all glory would be to him. Every knee shall bow, every tongue shall confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father Almighty. It's future history. It will happen. Absolutely. But at that point, thinking of bended knees, think about it this way. Either you can voluntarily bend the knee or it will be broken for you. One way or another, you're ending up on your knees. And the idea is that in his power and in his glory, he has long been patient. Far more patient than I would have been with us rascals, us scoundrels down here. And yet he's waiting. He's waiting for the very last one of his children, wherever that little shriveling rebel is, that paltry two-bit, nobody, nothing, godless heathen like me. Whenever that last one is found and turned and brought to life, then you can expect him to act, because he won't give up. He's the original, of which the Marines are kind of a rough whisper, an example. The Marine logo, or the Marine idea, I believe, was that they never leave their own behind. Never. And so even if they're dead, no one gets left behind. And so the whole Left Behind series, you can have it, pard. That's just bad theology. Jesus Christ is going to gather his children, and it doesn't matter whether you like it or not. He's going to use people just like you to spread his gospel truth. And that's what I hope to be doing, that the good news is real. The kingdom we're awaiting has come, and we dwell in it now by faith, through grace, unto the glory of God the Father, by the power of the Spirit in us, with the covering and leadership and mediator himself, Jesus Christ, as our brother, our king, and our lover. And so the centerpiece hasn't changed. What's happened is we're having to pay more attention to him now because of this official news blackout that even exists. That's part of what causes the loneliness, I think, is that even the vague roundabout mention of God Almighty, forget about mentioning the God of the Bible and Jesus Christ himself, forget about that. Even the vague deistic kind of Freemason stuff, which was the old Americana, and vaguely got around to mentioning someone called the Almighty, but that was kind of it. And not even that. The real God. The God who is called out by name, and he's given the name to call. There is no other name under heaven. And you know what that is. We say Jesus, you can say Yeshua if you want. I say, why don't you just jump on in and translate the name? I am he who is saving. I am salvation. That's the one. So go into church today, go find one, I hope, where you can at least not, pull your brains out. And by the way, if it's a UMC church, just turn around and walk out. The Methodists have lost their minds, apparently. Except there are a few who pulled back from that denomination, still calling themselves, I guess, Methodists. But the great apostasy has begun, perhaps, and we know now what the shape of it is and the stench of it is. Let me out of there. And may God's people prove true, whether they're being crushed or whether they're flourishing in plenty. May his people prove true and be strengthened in him. This is our prayer. Not that I would survive necessarily, but that his name would live on with a human witness here on this world, that Jesus Christ owns this world, and he's coming in person soon. See, now you can kind of balance out a little bit and relax. So I guess that's what was all bundled up in me that needed to come out today. So you go out and flourish yourself today. I hope you have a good day. And boy, the weather around here is really weird. So at any rate, for June, it looks like late September out there. I don't know. Maybe the weatherman's been smoking something too. We'll see you. Have a good day.